10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, honk! Where the pissing hell was Dean Ambrose? I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic.com, and this is what happened at Extreme Rules 2018. So kicking things off with the B team taking on Matt and Bray, the deleters of Worlds for the Raw Tag titles, and there's not that much to say here. This was a short, uninspired match. There's really not much to say. There were a few nice moments, Bray and Bo squaring off and Bray shouting, "Eat him," was nice. I actually think there's quite a nice feud there, obviously, with Bray and Bo, but overall, this was disappointing. The thing is, a month ago, the B team winning the tag titles would have been a nice moment. Like, you can't imagine it really leading anywhere, especially in the run-up to SummerSlam. This just feels like an odd, short-sighted booking decision. I'd rather see Matt and Bray defend against perhaps the Authors of Pain, someone like that. This was just, I don't know, it was just a disappointing match. I think they could have done a lot more. And the problem is, as well, it's Matt and Bray, two incredibly marketable characters, especially, like, Matt. A year ago, one of the most, over people in professional wrestling, full stop. And this is where we see them in the opening match of a pretty average to poor pay-per-view, dropping it to the B team. It wasn't for me. It's fine, Okay, so let's put that behind us. Next up was Finn Bálor versus Constable Corbin, and to me, probably the match that meant the least. This had one of the worst build-ups on the card. It was a feud that was based around Finn Bálor being good-looking and a little bit shorter than Baron Corbin, and Baron Corbin being bigger than Finn Bálor, and that's pretty much it. And the thing about Finn is, obviously, he can be an absolute megastar. As a babyface or a heel, he is so unbelievably marketable, and Baron Corbin, an utterly, naturally detestable heel. And then, I thought they might prove me wrong, but no, this was a nothing match. Fair play to Finn Bálor for trying to make this match feel important, selling like an absolute maniac, but ultimately the crowd weren't invested, and why should they be? The build was just awful. Finn Bálor wins with a roll-up, and let's just hope that both Finn Bálor and Baron Corbin go on to bigger and better things, feuds that actually mean something. Jesus Christ. We then go backstage and the Bludgeon brothers attack Team Hell No before their SmackDown Live Tag title match, pinning Kane's leg behind the door, hitting the door with a mallet. That's going to cause some damage, so they'll have to go to B&Q. And then it's time for Asuka versus Carmella for the SmackDown Women's title, with James Ellsworth suspended above the ring in a shark cage. So Ellsworth is up there. He almost immediately drops a chain, which is confiscated by the referee. He then drops that spray that we saw on SmackDown. That doesn't go to plan either. Eventually, this leads to Ellsworth escaping the cage, and then, like the absolute buffoon that he is suspended upside down, swinging by his shoelace, actually a harness around his ankle, looking like a complete and utter wally, which leads to Asuka being distracted. Asuka is then pushed into the shark cage by Carmella, which leads to Carmella picking up the win. Sure. So Carmella is still the SmackDown Women's Champion, and that's something I don't actually have a problem with. I don't mind Carmella picking up cheap wins. Those are the sorts of wins that she should be picking up. That's why Ellsworth is back. But Asuka looks like a complete buffoon, and I just feel like they've wasted this huge opportunity with the streak. It feels like it's been meaningless, and I don't know, it leaves a sour taste in the mouth, which is actually the theme for a lot of this pay-per-view. Next up, Shinsuke Nakamura versus Jeff Hardy for the US title, and first of all, just like the tag team match earlier in the night, Jeff Hardy, the champion, comes out first. Why? Just make the champion feel like a big deal. Anyway, Shinsuke Nakamura, before the bell, hits the low blow. I thought we might be done with that, but whatever. The bell rings, and then Kinshasa, your new US champion, Shinsuke Nakamura. You know what? I like this. If there's anyone that's going to give Shinsuke the heat that he deserves after that feud with AJ Styles, it's somebody that people care about and have always cared about in Jeff Hardy. After the match, Randy Orton walks down the ramp. He is back. The Viper is back. He stares down Shinsuke Nakamura. Thought we're going to get a feud there, but maybe, maybe not. He parts Jeff's legs and he kicks him in the abdomen. We've finally seen the heel turn from Randy Orton that we've been after for so long. Heel Orton is the best Orton. Think back to when he was punting Vince McMahon in the head, punting Stephanie McMahon, punting everybody. He was punting everybody. It was fantastic. And I think this heel turn was a bit underwhelming. Like, he could have hit an RKO or something. But I don't care. Heel Orton's back, and I hope he gives it his all because it can be brilliant. Next up, Kevin Owens versus Braun Strowman in a steel cage, and overall, I think this was an enjoyable match. At the beginning, Braun, as expected, is just ragdolling Kevin Owens, throwing him into the side of the steel cage again and again. It was good. Eventually, Owens manages to get the upper hand just enough to handcuff Braun to the ring rope, and then why didn't he just escape straight away? I guess he wanted to inflict a little bit of punishment first, maybe, but like Owens, he's a chicken heel. He should have just like jumped over the cage, got straight out of there, but eventually he does look to leave the cage and he does the suck it, and he does the CM Punk blowing of a kiss, and then he starts climbing, but no. Braun Strowman breaks the handcuffs, obviously, because he's Braun Strowman, and starts chasing Kevin Owens. So they sort of climb the cage together, and eventually Braun grabs Owens by the neck and chokeslams him off the cage through the announce table, and your winner is Kevin Owens, because his feet touch the floor first. Obviously. So Owens looks a bit of a moron for not just handcuffing Braun and then hightailing it out of there, and then Braun looks like an even bigger moron for not just chokeslamming him into the ring and then escaping. That would have been the sensible thing to do. And I get that Braun doesn't care about wins and losses because he just wants to destroy stuff, but if a wrestler doesn't care about wins and losses, then sort of why should we? I'm nitpicking. Overall, it was a fine match, but I just thought it was a bit of a weak ending, you know? Next up, the SmackDown Live Tag Champions, the Bludgeon Brothers, taking on Team Hell No, which is, of course, just Daniel Bryan after that attack earlier in the night, and this was meh as well. Like, Daniel Bryan was beaten up for the first half of the match, and then Kane finally comes out with a leg thing on, an ankle thing on, because he's hurt his ankle because he got hit with a door and a mallet, and he manages to get the upper hand. Daniel Bryan gets the hot tag with Kane. Kane comes in, clears house, and then tags back in Bryan, and eventually the Bludgeon Brothers, after a blind tag, they pick up the win. Still tag team champions, which isn't what I was expecting. Like, I'm not saying this was average because I really wanted Team Hell No to win. It was just an average match. It didn't feel as important as Team Hell No's first pay-per-view match should have felt. And that's a shame. So are we going to see a rematch at SummerSlam? Team Hell No versus the Bludgeon Brothers? I mean, WWE.com are reporting that Kane's got a broken ankle, so probably not. So fingers crossed we're going to get SAnitY versus the Bludgeon Brothers, hopefully with Bludgeon Brothers' reign ending, because it's been fine. Like, they're a dominant tag team, and I think with the placement of the tag matches, especially on SmackDown, they made the tag team titles feel quite big, but I do think it's time for that reign to end, so fingers crossed for my boys SAnitY, who had a pretty strong match on the pre-show too. Next up is your main event, Roman Reigns versus Bobby Lashley, and thank God they put this on at this point in the night. If this had closed things, actually thinking about the main event, well, if this had closed things, it would have probably been worse. I should probably point out that none of us were expecting anything from this match, and we certainly weren't disappointed. What this probably should have been was like Goldberg Lesnar from WrestleMania. Huge spots, huge, like, big moments, big bang, 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 but it was slow, methodical, which is WWE phrasing for actually quite boring. It was a lot of nothing again. It did heat up towards the end of the match with Bobby Lashley hitting a vertical suplex, which is still the most confusing move in the WWE right now, and then Bobby Lashley gets hit with a Superman punch, and then Lashley manages to hit a spear on the master of the spear, Roman Reigns, picking up a clean win, which is something that none of us expected. And after the match, commentary seemed to be pushing for Lashley versus Brock Lesnar for the Universal title match, presumably in a who is the sweatiest bastard match, because Jesus Christ, was Lashley sweating tonight. Like when he was on the turnbuckle, dripping. What am I on about? I'd quite like to see that match. I think Lashley's going to get destroyed, but there you go. I think there's your SummerSlam, possibly main event. Next up, Nia Jax versus Alexa Bliss for the Raw Women's title, and finally, an Extreme Rules match on the pay-per-view, which is called Extreme Rules, and this was fairly extreme. Some decent weapon spots here. Overall, I actually think this was a pretty good match. Some decent weapon spots and then some not so decent weapon spots. Nia charging face first sort of into the corner with the chair, and the trash can below it didn't quite work for me, but overall a fun match. After a while, Ronda Rousey, who was of course at ringside because she's banned from Raw and sort of pay-per-view, I don't really know, nobody seems to know. She jumps the barricade and she takes out Mickie James and then goes for Alexa Bliss, but Mickie James manages to recover, takes out Ronda Rousey with a kendo stick. Alexa rolls back in, DDTs Nia Jax. I don't know why I'm doing the moves. DDTs Nia Jax on a steel chair. She retains her Raw Women's Championship in a match that was good, but could have felt like bigger. It could have felt better. The build up to this has been a bit convoluted at times, but overall I just think it should have been more. Like the Rousey stuff didn't really work entirely, and I'm still excited for the inevitable Ronda Rousey versus Alexa Bliss match at SummerSlam, but this match didn't do anything to help that. And now the second to last match on the card, the match that probably should have finished the show. It's the WWE title match. AJ Styles, the champion, versus Rusev, and this was a good match. It was sensibly booked. Like AJ starts taking out the leg of Rusev, so Rusev can't lock in the accolade and hit his big power moves. I think we recorded a video earlier in the week which was talking about Rusev and how he hasn't really had any like standout matches. He's had great moments, and obviously he's got Rusev Day, he's terrifically over, but when you think about a great Rusev match, one doesn't necessarily spring to mind. I think this could have been it. It's AJ Styles versus Rusev. It should have been it, but it wasn't. Unfortunately, Rusev is at real risk of slipping back down the card now, and although there were great moments in this match, like the Machka kick and some of the near falls really got me, like I thought Rusev might have done it, overall this was once again underwhelming, and I feel sorry for Rusev. Like at least he's got a program set up now. It looks like him and Aiden English are going to feud. Aiden English, of course, pulled the corner turnbuckle pad off, and like it looks like they're going to do something there, but it's not a big rivalry. It's certainly not a WWE title match, which is something that Rusev deserved a long time ago. So yeah, AJ Styles retains the WWE Championship, and I'm happy about that. I don't necessarily think that this was Rusev's time. Maybe if you'd asked me 2 months ago, 3 months ago, I would have said something different, but I'm enjoying AJ's reign. I'm happy that that's still the case. I can't wait to see who he faces at SummerSlam. I just worry about Rusev. And finally, the main event, the Intercontinental title, Seth Rollins versus Dolph Ziggler, and this was always going to be match of the night. Like we can say, hey, it could have been Rusev AJ, it could have been New Day SAnitY, it could have been a lot of things, but come on, you put Seth Rollins and Dolph Ziggler in a ring together, you know it's going to be great. So Seth Rollins picks up a quick 2-0 lead, but then Drew McIntyre gets frustrated, rolls in the ring, takes out Seth Rollins, making it 3-0. He gets DQ'd, but before he leaves, he hits the Claymore on Seth Rollins, which allows Dolph Ziggler to roll over, cover Seth, making it 3-1. Then he hits a super kick, making it 3-2. Then he hits a zigzag, making it 3-3. 3 pinfalls in like less than 3 minutes. Skip forward a little bit, it's still even. Seth looks like he's finally going to pick up the win, but just as he makes the cover, the clock elapses. It's over. It's a draw. But no, anything can happen in the WWE, and Kurt Angle's music hits, he comes out, he makes it sudden death, and then Drew comes back with a distraction, zigzag, Ziggler wins. I really thought we were going to see an Ambrose return here, and probably leading to an Ambrose heel turn. Maybe he was going to cost Seth the match, and then we were going to get a great program there. Like, why put on the mid-card title match last if it's got a dodgy finish? And it's underwhelming. It leaves an unpleasant taste in one's mouth. Why not put on Rusev AJ? It wasn't a good match, but it would have been better than this. It was just that was the theme of this pay-per-view, wasn't it? Just slightly unpleasant finishes and an underwhelming show. And that's a shame. Overall, despite my many complaints, this was an okay show. I'm trying to stay positive. I think the lesson learned is, as we did do here, set your expectations low and then you'll never be disappointed. Story of my life. So that's all from me. Thanks for watching, and you can follow me on Twitter here. If you enjoy what we do here at Cultaholic, you can pledge to our Patreon. That's patreon.com/Cultaholic. And most importantly, don't forget to hit subscribe and join us.